It is 3:05 on May 19th. And Bill, you have an agenda, a change on things.
We'll talk when we get there.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't want to get anything off here.
Okay,
Yeah, no, I brought the current legislation that's in the state house right
all right.
Yeah.
All right, so now it's pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Every time I look at that flag, I look at those holes, and I'm like, it's a good thing we're starting to fix some things around here. We get us what we do for a couple of years. That's one of them. Our holes.
Jess, you were gonna, policy reviews in the old business, you were gonna tackle that.
Yeah, so we got that, response from the attorney saying that, we can't change. Nobody is allowed to have tobacco products or substitutes on public school grounds, so, we have to probably take out that section. Oh, yeah, it's been crossed out.
And that was a memo that you sent us.
Yeah, that came, we got sent this to Mark, I can't remember Mark's last name. Never mind, yeah, it was part of Lynn Blackman, the school's attorney. And he just said we can't have any exceptions unless the law changes.
Yeah, I think, Mrs. Boyd changed theirs, but maybe they did it without speaking.
Yeah, that's one of the things I do with all the policies, we're gonna change it. It was more than just some grammar.
Yeah.
I sent it to the attorney.
Yeah.
All right, so the next step with that one is to,
We did some other changes, right, Jess?
Yeah. I thought-
In this policy, so I think the other, that's fine, but it just.
I'm so,
What?
I left the house literally flying.
That's all right. We can help, we can all help each other, that's what we do here. We all help each other.
Yeah, that was pretty much everything else talked about having ceremonial tobacco be allowed, so. Yeah, this copy is the one that will move forward.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move it forward for review by the full board.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the next scheduled meeting next month. June. Disgusting. And C2, was that Joanne? Or was that you?
That's me.
You sent us your revisions.
Okay, here it is. Yeah, so this, the revision is one with the red. That is the one
Yeah, let me give you everything. Did I give up my yet?
Current model revisions draft. So the draft has all the revisions in it, so I think that one is ready to go to the board.
Was there, can you remind us just if there was anything in this one that we were going back and forth about last time?
I don't think so. I think it just got a little messy.
Okay.
It was the tobacco.
Yeah. It's been a few weeks, sorry.
You can get that.
Yeah, I think this one, it just was moving some things around and adding more language that was in the model policy.
Is everyone up to speed on that? All right, so we will bring that forward to the full board. And Bill, what was the update on in terms of procedures for each of the schools? Just so people feel, each of the schools are feeling like they are good to go.
So for this,
For the drug and alcohol.
so what we would do is if this gets adopted by the board, I don't think it would be much change in procedures, looking at the language that's in here, because we have that already in our handbooks, and so it would just be in there about how the procedures for how we handle them, which is, I don't think I've come to the board since I know definitely since being a superintendent, I know I did it as assistant. My memory could be off, but really under drug and alcohol, because we're treating so much with education. I know there are a couple students that like 6th, 7th time I've got pretty close, but said, let's keep trying the education route and the sensation route.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I heard from the board pretty clearly, like, keep working it. This is the name of the Where I would come is if I had distribution, intent to sale.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, that's how I would do it, and that's why I like your principles.
I was just like, I think it's more about like, are people following the same procedure?
Yeah, actually,
Are they
people had
feeling
a really good conversation between the high school and the middle school. I'm sure some more's happening in the middle school actually.
Great. Karen.
Yeah, so the section 504 and ADA grievance protocol for students and staff, honestly was identical. The only question that I had for the group is it notes, so if you go to the second page where it says step 2, it says submitted to either the district section 504 coordinator. It says see list at the end of the document for contact info. Here, just versus it being embedded, which was the recommendation. I wonder if we need to, it says, it says in a few places. I don't think we need to embed it there. I think anytime it's noted, just my question is, should we just say, see list at the end of this document, just so that people, I think it's noted in there enough. It was just the question, as to whether we wanted to, every time it says the district 504 coordinator, or school-based, so see how it says district section 504 coordinator, school coordinator, see list. And then again, down here it says submitted to the director of human resources. I don't know if we also there want to say, see contact info there, or if we feel like once up above is enough. It was it's a little piece, yeah, so otherwise it's perfectly fine. It's just whether we want to cite more than once. See contact list at the end of this. I'm assuming that just changes.
We do that, so you have to change the policy.
Yeah,
If
which makes sense.
someone changes out
Yeah.
as a contact.
So I think it's fine the way it is. I don't really have, the model one has it embedding the contact information many times throughout the policy. So my recommendation is it's fine the way that it is, unless people feel like we want to oversight contact information. Seems like we're good the way it is.
It's really is.
Next. All right, so we are good on that. Bill, everything good?
I think so. It looks like it's the same as what we
Yeah.
had, so I don't think that does not need to go anywhere. I think we would just note that it's been reviewed on the state.
Yeah. And honestly, it was only adopted like 2 years ago, so it's very recent, that policy, so.
Okay, so we will move C14 to the full board.
We will not be moving into the board.
We will.
We will, even though there's no revision.
There's no revisions, you don't need to,
Oh,
just say
cool.
reviewed and.
Okay. All right, perfect.
Just note that it was reviewed. That's what I was trying to say, sorry.
I don't know.
Yeah, if you just review it, then we know at the bottom it's been reviewed, and we put it into the matrix of that spreadsheet that you went through and looked at it here, and looked at it, compared it, and said, okay, we want to keep it what it is.
May I just ask a quick question? And I may have missed it, I apologize. I just sent my kid to Europe, so, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
A little stressful. Okay, did you talk about the tobacco prohibition?
We did.
Did you talk about it both in terms of student and staff?
It's two different policies.
Yeah, there's a
Okay,
second
so
policy.
because I was responsible for the workplace, alcohol and drugs, but there's no tobacco in there. So I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, there's a separate
Okay.
workplace tobacco one.
Okay.
I looked at,
All right.
that's what I wrote down, I was supposed to look at.
Did,
But didn't
I
see
wondered
it on
if I was
there.
supposed to do that. I only saw myself responsible for the alcohol and drug one. But I just wanted to make sure that it got,
Oh, it's not on the list,
Captured.
but I looked at it. I guess I signed it to myself.
which is fine. I just want to make sure that it got assigned and that, we're doing it. Because that would be one that is
It's when it's needed, yeah.
needed and difficult. And something that we probably need to bring up in terms of other people who work at the school who are not school employees, specifically the Abbey group. And
Our biggest issue,
Oh,
frankly,
yeah.
Yeah.
our biggest issue is up at the complex.
oh, I guarantee you it's the Abbey group as well. Anybody who works for the Abbey group, they go out and they take smoke breaks, and oftentimes they do it on school grounds. So that's an issue, and some of the custodians as well. So that's definitely some very specific folks where it's an issue, ongoing issue all the time. Not just at the complex. Is it, Jessica, when you went through it, Did it meet? I have not looked at it, because I've only seen,
Yeah, I didn't print it off, I looked at it, I don't know. I just mixed that up, but it was pretty much in line with the model policy.
okay,
But I didn't look for those details specifically, so whenever, and when we put it on the agenda, I guess maybe for next month, we can look at it more closely.
okay.
Did you see, we'll put this in our packet.
I just saw that.
I just wonder where this. Just wonder where.
I would imagine that that should be,
Is it in the student policy, but not in the staff policy section? That's just, this is the student.
I don't know. So Bill, what you sent, what you gave to us today, was that just for students or was that for, no, I mean, because it talks about community. The 140, 16 VSA 140.
Yeah, you can't have tobacco for any reasons. On school grounds.
Right.
I guess your question is really around sort of, if it's not our students and it's not, like if it's in our student policy and potentially in the staff policy, but what about people who don't fall under staff or students, because we have some
And they-
subcontractors?
Yeah, they would be,
But this is still true.
still true, it's
Yeah,
true for
yeah.
everybody, no matter who you are.
Absolutely.
And there's signs,
Yeah,
right,
signs
like
up,
there's
signs up.
things like that.
So it doesn't say possession of, it just says
Use.
use.
Sorry, I said possession, I should say use.
Okay. But you're not supposed to have them in your possession too, right? 'Cause it says
Students, under 18.
under
18.
21.
Is it 21 now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm totally wrong, I didn't look at the, there is not a separate adult tobacco.
I didn't think so.
Yes, I looked at the.
So then that would be something for us to discuss. And it doesn't have to be today.
Yeah.
But I don't think that there is a tobacco workplace one. If there is, I didn't see it. Do you know if there is one?
I have to go look at the list.
But this one says it extends to employees.
With the tobacco prohibition?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Tobacco prohibition. The ban extends to any student, employee, or visitor. I don't know, would you want to add like contractor in there? Just the add is more of a contracted position.
I think I would check with our attorney, but if it says staff and contract through a contractor, they still would be under such.
Okay.
I'll go with some regulations. But I can check that.
So maybe this is enough, and maybe we just need to make sure we have it both in the personnel part and in the student section, you know what I mean? So it carries over to both.
Why are you thinking for the general public that's in the personnel, we have a personnel handbook? I'm just trying to think of, I'm not saying no, but I understand why.
Okay, then maybe it's unnecessary. I'm just thinking that we could use some better enforcement or better education, better awareness of tobacco policy within the district.
Okay.
Specifically to staff. And so making sure that, because you see, staff members see the alcohol and drug-free workplace, but do they see one for tobacco, I guess is my question. Is that
I can't tell you if they see it, I can tell you that we post it.
we post it?
I can tell you, like, I give people the handbook, do they read it?
Yeah,
I can't tell you that.
no, of course not.
Like, so, I mean,
I
it's
just wanna make sure
like,
that it's easily accessible, like, so they're looking through it.
sorry to be so literal about it, but it's like, I can't, I wish I could control
No,
staff, but I can't.
No, I don't have that expectation at all. I just wanna make sure that it is clear.
Signage or something?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's more in the accountability. I don't know, it just needs to be discussed more, because it's an issue.
Is there signage up at Collins Burley?
I can tell you every morning I go by and there's a community member from housing that stands on the side of the road every morning. And he would argue with me that he's in the road right away. I would argue he's in Collinsburg.
Mhm.
I decided to get in that argument at 7:50 every morning when I go by.
Right. Is there signage, are we clear that there's signage at every school?
I haven't gotten to inspect it.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So,
I think if there's signage and there's, like, by the dumpsters, wherever the people go, outside of the cafeteria or wherever. Then they might.
A matter of communication, maybe with some of like the subcontracting groups around the policies of Maple Run? Is that, I don't know what that.
I think it's about accountability. I think that when there aren't administrators around at night, in the evening, for, and when people are going out on, meal breaks for breakfast and lunch, I mean, I've seen it. I know it happens. But people are very uncomfortable with confronting it. And so some people might feel comfortable confronting it, but other folks do not. So one thing that, I guess the only thing that I would be uncomfortable with would be if somebody was trying to quit and they were using a nicotine gum or whatnot, so it looked like it said on the one that you passed out, tobacco products or tobacco substitutes. It's not a tobacco substitute, it's a nicotine substitute. Would we not support that for an employee? Or even a student that was trying to
So
quit.
this is, I hear you, this is what our attorney, the school district attorney's telling us, is that it can't be a tobacco substitute. They would say it can't be a nicotine substitute, it can't be a tobacco substitute. The way I read that.
What's a tobacco substitute?
Well, if you want to take what can get put into a vape machine, there's a lot of things.
That's not tobacco.
I'm not saying it is, but it could be a substitute for a high.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky line with the nicotine, because they're not supposed to have it if they're under 18. And then there's those pouches that kids are using.
Yes,
Lots of people are using, yeah. Definitely don't want them to have that.
Yeah.
But I think, does this allow for some discretion? So the superintendent develops rules and regs that are within your judgment to implement this policy.
Okay. There are pediatricians who are, prescribing their patients
It's a prescription.
nicotine replacement, but it's still nicotine replacement. So I just want to make sure that it's open, you know what I mean? That, if somebody is trying to quit vaping, and because we're trying to support that, right?
Yeah.
So if somebody is, could they go to the nurse and say, here's my 7 sticks of Nicorette gum for the day, can I come down and get them from you? Are we, is that within our policy? Are we able to support that?
The policy, the last sentence specifically mentions tobacco substitutes, nicotine. It clearly identifies nicotine as a tobacco substitute. 2 sentences up from the bottom.
Okay, so this it's not accurate then, because nicotine is the drug that's in tobacco.
I'm not
Tobacco
doing
is
that,
just the
so
leaf.
the policy states, so my
Yeah.
language reading of that is linking nicotine with tobacco substitute.
Yeah. That's not, I don't know, not really accurate. But I don't wanna take up too much time on it. I'm just saying, like, it's just interesting that that's how it's written and that that's how the lawyers are saying to write it, because it's not accurate. You know, nicotine is the addictive substance.
So here, I'm gonna generalize
Uh-huh.
outside of this. The law sometimes, not sometimes, many times, I'm watching what's happening in law right now, debate, is not technically accurate with the science.
Okay.
Or the medication.
Okay.
And they do the best they can.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say your knowledge of tobacco and cessation because of the work you do is much more in depth than what the legal aspect is. And that's why it has that piece of the superintendent can
Okay.
do those rules and procedures. And I mean, I've seen us caught in other places that way too. And there is no perfect law. Law has grayness in it.
Always.
So,
I just want to make sure that it supports the student or a staff member who is trying to quit.
Yeah.
To be able to have some of these substitutes on them if they are being, you know, maybe, I mean, I don't even know how you would handle that as far as a staff member goes. A student, I would understand, because they're not 21, they would need to make a nurse or,
Yeah.
you know, their counselor aware of it to make it okay for them to use that. A staff member, I don't know how you're, you know, legally, how that would go down, I guess is what I'm saying.
Usually we're most not.
Just in terms of, do they have to come and show you that, do you know what I mean? Like, I just didn't know how that would work.
I don't go asking.
Yeah,
The only way I go asking is if I see someone that you were talking about, using tobacco products.
yeah, right, blatantly, in the order.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you, Joanne. Number 4, student club policy. This is a new one. We have a model policy, C22, the student athletic clubs and activities. And I just handed you guys what I created, specifically for Maple Run. The Maple Run Unified District Student Clubs and Activities, that includes non-curricular clubs, limited open forum, non-curricular student clubs, and non-instructional time. Those are all definitions. And we can go over this another time, because I want to give you guys time to go through it, since I just handed it to you.
this is more of the procedure, like it works, kind of.
There's a lot of procedure in here.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it wouldn't be the policy, it's just how we do it.
Right,
And
it
we don't have
includes,
an actual policy right now, is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
and it includes, non-school sponsored clubs. So I would like to move that we all take this and just kind of look over it, if you want, for next month. And we can go forward with the new policy.
Is this based on the model policy?
It takes parts and pieces of it, and, we had a club that came to us a couple months ago, that I wanted to make sure that we were covering non-sponsored in our policy.
So they have access.
They have access.
So what's the reason for this
Just want to,
piece?
because it's not written, we don't have a policy, and I just want to make sure that
Is it not necessary?
I don't think it's necessary.
What's the difference between these two? Because
This was just,
the board approved
This
the one
is-
on June 26th, 2024, do you know what I mean? So you wrote a policy, okay. now-
Is
now I
this,
understand.
is your policy based off the school board's
it's,
one? Similar? Okay,
it's similar.
okay, perfect. I just
Okay.
wanted to pull that one
So
out.
these two are similar. We have this in place right now, which is more of a procedural,
Right,
okay?
Right.
And then we have, you know, this little thing here that just says
Talks about
our
how
clubs,
people-
and then and that could be even added to this.
Right.
In terms of like how you, start a new club, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so make sure I'm cool.
I thought there was
so the,
like
this
federal
one that we
law.
have now is extracurricular and co-curricular.
Right, it's a procedure, it's not a policy, because we recognize that we did not have an actual policy. Okay, so we need to look at these two and see, I mean, I think it's important that we have a policy,
The
but,
School Board Association policy.
yep, the C-22.
And then the one that I just handed out, it's kind of a,
Okay.
That you couldn't have school endorsed religious or
it's
political
not school
clubs.
endorsed. But you're allowed, have to have them be able to,
Open forum.
they should be able to participate under the equal access.
They're able to.
Have their meetings.
They're allowed to have uses, if we allow our space to be used by non-school sponsored organizations, anything, then that opens it up to to secular clubs.
Secular or religious.
Secular religious clubs. And so we use let's just use Maple Fest uses our facilities, right? So they're not in our organization, so great. And the board has said that with our use of the policy on, use of facilities. In our facilities, it says right in there, we allow non-Maple to use our facilities. I'm fine either way, I'm just saying that you asked me to direct you, I mean, I need it, no, but if the board feels we need it, then for sure.
You have this open this up that we provide, like it says bulletin boards, other resources. So then we would have to do that for any.
Anybody,
That
any group,
comes in,
any group that comes in.
they can have a bulletin board and use.
And
whatever
use,
they
yeah.
want.
I mean, I'd have to read through it,
Yeah.
and that's some of the places we have to look at, to say, do we want to go down that road?
I don't think, I would want like a non-affiliated political group to come and put stuff on bulletin boards
Well,
in the
the
school.
club would have to be student led.
Yeah, just, I would take let's take some real extreme cases. So if we had a student-led group that said, that aligned themselves with the KKK, would we want them to be able to put it in the school system and or in the announcements?
I don't think the KKK isn't it a hate group?
It is a hate group,
So
but
that
that,
would be,
well, this is where you get into the fuzzy area.
An interest-based group.
Because it gets into that judgment piece.
Yeah, that was my question, because when you go to,
I mean, I would definitely want the school's attorney to give you some advice.
Yeah, thanks.
Because
Yeah.
I know that's something the school attorney and I have talked about, is like,
Thank
you
you.
don't want to be in judgment places.
If you look on the second page of the model policy, and you go to under the definitions, it says athletics, clubs, and activities may be, one, school sponsored and related to the curriculum, 2, student-run and not related to the curriculum, or 3, community-sponsored and not related to the curriculum. This policy addresses the first 2 categories, and the third is addressed in the district's policy of what you're saying, Bill, right? The community use of school facilities. So the only suggestion that I had about this was maybe making sure, you know how we talked about referencing other policies?
Right.
And making sure that we have those 2 policies together, and then we don't have to worry about it. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does.
And then it's just more broad
Yeah.
about being more specific. That works.
So the reason I started this thing was because of the club that came to the board, they weren't being given permission until they came to the board to use the announcements for their meetings. They were already in the schools.
Yeah.
But they weren't being allowed to really use them. And that was the principal decision.
Yeah.
Now they are.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that that doesn't have to happen again.
I think you have to think about what are the daily announcements? If you're
Or
gonna-
whatever, however they are allowed to advertise their meeting time so that their group can,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what group it is.
How do all students
Right.
advertise
Advertise.
access to, impromptu meetings that, might come up,
Yeah,
Or the
or
daily meetings or
a daily-
flyers or
yeah.
whatever, that they are allowed.
I think it just has to be
Allowed to
equal,
do
it
that.
has to be equal for
Correct.
non-school sponsored
Yep.
activities where they are allowed to post for their meeting times. I want it to be equal, I want it to be the same.
Yeah.
Because an example is UVM puts out a piece on, I use this example, I use this with the principal to explain, I said, do we post stuff about the Governor's Institute? Which is not us, has good things to do for learning for kids, but it's not ours. Do we put that in the announcements? And I got a yes, and I'm saying, so I think you just opened it up to non-school sponsored activities.
very interesting that you use that. Yeah, that's a great,
So if you did
is
that, if you did that, you've got to do it for everyone else. If you had a different way of posting for Governor's Institute, that wasn't the electronic announcements, then you could say everyone has to do that method that's non-school sponsored.
Yeah.
But you have it, so now you have it open, and that's that's actually how we solved this. I said, I think you just opened it up for everyone. If you wanted something different for the non-school sponsored than the electronic, you've got to provide that. But you've already gone down this road. Doesn't mean you can't change it later on, but you've got to have the same for everybody.
Yeah.
If they're a non-school sponsored activity.
yeah, that's interesting, because I actually took exception to that one time, because there were like, some of the guidance counselors were really great about making that accessible to their students, and some of the guidance counselors were not, right? And so some people knew about it and some people didn't.
Another great one was Beta Technologies
Mhm.
has some internships.
Yep.
If you're gonna put that up, that's not school sponsored, and someone's, well, that's work-based. I said, so then that could be in the work-based learning room.
And that's what Stephanie's doing now, right? She has like another aspect of announcements that she's, making. So maybe that's something that the student voice could do, is figure out a way to advertise, school and non-school sponsored clubs for students.
But we've already started doing that. We've already been doing it. Not all our schools. We have a couple schools, 2 schools in particular, Fairfield and City, that don't put outside organizations. in their
Yeah.
announcements. I said to the schools that have, you've got to continue doing it. So I'm fine either way. I just wanted us to
Okay.
be fully transparent about what we're doing.
Is there room in the policy, or is it in here where there's some discrimination allowed by the principal? So it's not like any group.
Our lawyer,
Discretion.
Discretion, yeah.
So
No discrimination.
our attorney has actually advised me that you don't have discretion,
Hmm.
that you don't. It's either all or none. You don't go one way or the other.
Hmm.
That otherwise we set us up for liability left and right. So if you've done it already, you keep doing it for anybody.
Hmm.
Unless you get on. The reason Marion called out the right thing. If you've got a group that's known, that's been designated a hate group, you're still on shaky ground, my attorney says. Our attorney, sorry, attorney, Pietro says, I slid back. Pietro says that you're still on shaky, we're still on shaky ground, even though they might be a hate group. If you're, and that's one of the reasons, one of the things that we've actually been advised as superintendents to allow none. But I don't think that that meets the curricular objectives for the kids when I think about all the good things. But it is a shaky place.
Policy, if we adopt the, you know, we can look at what you presented here, but if we adopt the model policy, right? Then, and we, you know, put a little, asterisk, including the school use or facilities use policy in there, I think we're hitting what needs to be hit policy-wise. I think the procedure was a sticking point, you know, for you, because that should have been able to happen in the appropriate way.
Thank you. I agree with that.
Our policy was standing.
We have this.
Yeah.
So we have academic facilities use.
Okay, right.
Okay. So we'll move this to next.
What's the this that we're doing? I just want to be clear so we know, or if you want people to read it, compare it, and come back next time, as you initially said.
I understand what you're saying.
I just want to make sure it's fine to give us time and it's fine for us.
I'd like to just read it. I would like you to read it and just.
Yeah, okay.
I know we just looked at the community use policy too, but maybe we could look at that as well, just to make sure it's putting all the right.
So, yeah, can you send out to everyone the facilities use policy? Okay. Let's do that.
And thanks for pointing that out again.
Yeah, no worries. Sometimes I say it out loud, but it also just reminds me of the difference between the policy and the procedure.
All right, so now we are at new business.
Yeah. I'm bringing this for Brianne. She's gonna be with us today. She's at a AOE required training. So in this, the state law has changed for the capitalization, the amount, which is down on line 15. It was $3,000. Or no, it was 5,000. We're trying to move it to 10. The law has changed to 10,000. So our auditor has suggested, and along with the state law changing, that line, you'll see in the red line, that just changes from $5,000 to $10,000. And that we need that for July 1, so we'd like to get that through here and send it to the board in the 2 meetings in June. So we have it into effect for next fiscal year. So that means there's certain ways that we do accounting for uncapitalized.
Yep. And that's the only change.
That's the only change.
Okay. So we will bring it before the full board.
Okay.
Next is policy reviews and Bill,
Well, how about the behavior
Oh.
threat assessment? Is 5B?
oh,
Oh, yours is a little different than mine, sorry.
right, I have no one in
So this is one that you were talking to me about in the agenda review.
yes,
So right now, in the omnibus education bill, they're extending the timeline for the behavior threat assessment. In current statute, we must approve a behavior threat model policy by July 1. In the omnibus bill, which is this big bill that goes at the end of the session that kind of takes care of all the technical fixes, they're moving it out to October 1st of this year. The reason being is that the AOE has gotten they put together this model policy, and some of we're not one of them, but some of the districts have said, hey, some of the language you have in here is gonna incur extra costs for districts that we currently don't have. So we're in that tricky place right now, along with the other districts and all the other districts in the state of, we have current law that says we've got to take this model policy that's here and adopt it, or something more stringent. Or it becomes part of by law, it becomes enacted for us. We also know that at the legislature right now, there's this bill in place that's gone through the House and is at the Senate. That's the omnibus, it does technical changes, giving time for more updates to this model policy and giving us to October. So if that doesn't go through, we don't get time to put this in, but it automatically comes in under law. We had that happen to us before. And so my recommendation is actually let it go through the legislature, and this happens at times, there's technical changes that happen at the legislature. And they change and give us time to kind of go back. So we could wait and do this work, by October, which I think, we'll have to talk about when we're meeting next, but we have a June meeting and hopefully we'll take July off, but we would know by then where we're going and get things ready for August and September.
Just, the only thing that I would care about is just making sure that all the schools are doing it the same way, and then you have a good procedure in place.
That I can tell you is happening,
Yeah.
right?
Great, right, no, I know, I'm just saying like in between,
Yeah.
putting one in, yeah.
Yeah.
Fine. Makes sense,
So that's where we're at.
we do it twice.
so we will let the process play out.
Yep.
Selection of library materials.
So we're a little bit in the same place. I have right in front of me here the bill I actually went to, and I read it today, and I was like, I don't see much that's different, except for there's a 2024 Vermont Freedom to Read statement that's not in the model policy. Well, no, it's there, it's actually there, Vermont's Freedom to Read statement from January 2004. So they're doing literally two crossouts that are different in the library from looking at this. So I think and I only did this in a half hour ago before the meeting, so I was like, okay, what are the changes, the latest changes? And so I think I'm gonna recommend to all of you that this go forward as the model policy. I don't see anything substantially different from what they're doing in the omnibus technical changes bill. And then we have procedures that our librarians have put together that, Aaron, I know you were just quickly getting into the packet that you wouldn't have seen before electronically, but our librarians have put together, they actually wrote it as a policy, one of those procedures. But I know you were quickly doing some edits, right?
It should be changed.
It should have been changed, that these would be our procedures on how we select materials, and they actually put together a form for it and all that. But they did some great procedures. When I read through them a week or two ago, I was like, oh, that looks pretty good. Thanks, librarians. And that we review that. So I would recommend to you that you take the model policy. I don't see the difference between what's in the omnibus change law and what's here. But if you'd like to wait, it's not gonna change the implementation date, which is interesting. That's what I always look for first, which is on this, when this section, it's under section 16 of the omnibus is amended to read, and the effective date is still July 1st of this year. So I don't see anything that's hitting us. I think it's just saying that each superintendent head of a school, of an approved independent school shall develop and implement procedures. That's what's underlined in here on the bill, so that might be just the news saying that that's affecting everybody. And that may not have been in there before. So I recommend that go to June, that this.
Go to the June
Go to the June meeting.
full board.
Yeah.
Okay, policy review A01, board member conflict of interest. Is that you, Bill?
Conflict of interest, no. I never written down to Karen, but.
I apologize if that was me. I think I had
You volunteer.
volunteer and work study students, but I'm happy to do that one for next time. Sorry. Did I pick two and I didn't write my name down?
I gave Bill two, so.
Okay, my apologies. I will do that one for next one.
We forgive you.
Oh my goodness, okay.
Move to June.
Yes, my absolute apologies.
Oh, please.
No worries.
Oh, sweat.
Whew.
All right, I think I have Bill for substitute teacher.
Oh. Good. Okay. Notes for
Are these the same as?
I just have a little underline.
You have some underlining, great.
Yeah. It's not too much though, pretty
Yeah.
So where are we? Substitute.
Well, you need the one, he underlined in red.
Yeah, there's a little underline in each of them, just.
Yeah. Oh, so we need a little the underline from the model too, so.
So, in the unlicensed persons, paragraph or section, the Maple Run policy says that, substitute teachers can be employed 30 consecutive school days. The model talks about consecutive days or calendar days. So I don't know if
Yeah, the
there's a-
law has changed to what the model is.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that should be changed then.
That should
Well,
change, yeah.
Yeah, I guess consecutive days, consecutive calendar days is what the model uses. Under the administrative responsibilities in the second paragraph, that first sentence about the superintendent conducting an orientation session for substitute teachers each year is not included in the model. That also, well, I don't know if that would want, if you want that removed, that would give you a little bit more flexibility as to whether there's an orientation session held each year, that could be placed into the procedures portion.
Could be, yeah, I mean, we do orientation when they want to communicate with the ball, with the substitute. It's not each year, because it keeps changing when someone comes in. It's more one-on-one, Joanne, he does that,
So as needed instead of.
maybe as needed.
And then, in the model, I've just got one sentence underlined, and I'm guessing this may be something that's added to the model policy, about specifying that they're going to be given information to prevent, identify, and report child sexual abuse. So we're suggesting that be added under the administrative responsibilities.
Yeah, that's the law.
And, that's it, it's just pretty, cut and dry.
So take second paragraph under admin responsibilities and put it into our policy.
Right, only that first sentence though, the other, the second sentence is already included in the authority policy.
So he says this person, that makes sense already there. And this one. Second part of the academic information is there. Information. Probably makes sense right after the orientation.
Yeah, I think you're right, Karen, that right after the orientation, but I just try to wrote notes here, child abuse sentence.
Yeah.
Right there. And I took your as needed comment.
Okay. Is everyone okay with the changes?
Yes.
All right, so we will bring that before the board in June. Volunteers and work study students.
That is me. So it's very similar. I don't have a copy for you, but I'm just gonna tell you where it's different. So, under definitions where it says work study students, the Maple Run says work study student / intern. The other piece is this one specific, the model policy specifically designates post-secondary students. The Maple Run does not say that. I'm assuming that is somewhat intentional to allow for students who are not post-secondary. So that's the only place that piece is different. And Maple Run adds the term intern and defines it. So an intern is working without pay will be considered as working without pay will be considered a work study student. So it's a little bit broader in its terminology. The only other place that it is different is that under, it adds student teacher in here. And then underneath student teacher, it adds the sentence on volunteer. So lines 18 to 23, or 22, excuse me, are in the Maple Run policy, but not in the model policy to specifically outline a student teacher. And then 21 and 22 is just saying that the superintendent or his or her designee can remove someone who's a volunteer work study, student intern or student teacher, which is not in the model policy, but I think that's probably a good thing to have in there in the event that there is an issue. So there's a little bit extra in here, but I think it really clarifies the people that we have in the building. I would recommend that we stay with the Maple Run policy because it does specifically have that line about removal, but also talks about interns and student teachers.
And the big reason for the work study piece is we have quite a few seniors,
Okay.
especially their second semester,
Yeah.
who come in and work as paraeducators, or we actually have quite a few juniors and seniors that are working as custodians in second shift. And we're compensating for
Yes.
that work.
That's my recommendation. I don't think anything exciting in there, but I appreciate that the Maple Run policy just
Is strong.
is strong. Yeah, it really defines those additional people who are in the schools. So my recommendation is to delete the Maple Run policy as is.
So it is reviewed,
We just know that review it on
note of review date. All right, B3, alcohol and drug-free workplace.
Okay. Also, mostly following the model policy in its entirety, other than the last paragraph. So it ends, the model policy ends with, in addition, an employee who violates the terms of this policy will be subject to disciplinary action. And in the Maple Run policy, it goes on to say, including but not limited to non-renewal, suspension, or termination at the discretion of the superintendent, or if required, the board. So I don't know if that's a legal support that you were encouraged, not you specifically, that the district was encouraged to put on there, or if it's redundant, or the only difference, everything else is.
What lines are you in?
So if you're looking at if you're looking at the Maple Run policy,
Yeah,
it changes on line 43.
okay,
It ends, I'm sorry, line 44, it ends at will be subject to disciplinary action, period, for the model policy, excuse me. And then Maple Run just has that last piece there.
I could ask our attorney, but this was done back in 2018.
Yeah, so I'm just putting it back.
And does the church want us to look into that, leave it?
I don't know if it's necessary, I mean, it
I don't know
doesn't
either.
speak much to me, so if it's not a problem, then it's not a problem for me. My only question was around, if people felt that it was encompassed in this policy, like over-the-counter, drugs. over the counter or prescription. I mean, it does say controlled substances, but not all drugs are controlled substances. And, you know, just making sure, because again, you know, every once in a while, you have folks that feel that it's okay to give, you know, students a cough drop, or if they have some Tums in their pocketbook, or if they have, you know, whatever, like, is it clear in here? Do we want something in here stating that shouldn't be sharing
Over the counters.
anything with anybody else?
Do we need to have that?
That's a good question.
And if you don't wanna go there, that's fine. It's just like, you know, how the nurses all have
Right.
the health forms of everybody, right?
Right.
About what they're allowed to have and what they're not
Right,
allowed to
I
have.
want the
Well, what if, you know, colleague B gives colleague C, you know, something that they're not supposed to have, but they didn't realize, you know, I don't know, is that all in there?
I think it's a good question, man.
And then people giving kids stuff.
Well, I was going more to the
That
kid stuff.
Mhm.
And less of the teachers, but more coaches, like, hey, take some ibuprofen. Okay, that's not your, and I know that they get trained this, but
Teachers,
It's not your role.
paras,
it's not your role.
right, not your role. So I just wanted to throw it out there.
That's probably a good question. I mean, a good add-on. Over the counter.
Let me do a quick email on this.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. And, you know, prescribed, it doesn't have, it just says controlled substances. So I mean, if that, again, that's just a word choice, whatever, I'm just throwing it out there, just prescription and over-the-counter meds. You know, it says in there that you're not supposed to have them, they need to be tucked away, basically, but like, what does that mean?
Yeah, let me ask Mark McDermott that. I think it's worth it, question, and come back to you in June. Get the answer, just like we did with the tobacco.
And, natural supplements too.
That's probably a good question.
Well, I'm just saying, people
Yeah.
say, oh, I have some arnica in my pocketbook, or I have this, or I have that, you know, like, just, you know, important.
That's a good one.
Okay. So that will come before us in June again, those answers. B5, employee, non-employee harassment. You have Maple Run's policy and the state policy, the model policy. And I really liked, sorry, I have to make this. There weren't. I have copies here, but I wrote up, but I don't like it anymore. Then everything is really defined out and even broken out better than in the Maple Run policy. And, I didn't really see any changes that needed to be made. I think it's pretty clearly laid out. When you did this in 2016, you did a good job.
None of us were here, so.
Joanne, what?
Formation.
No,
Formation year?
Formation year, yeah. That's when that comes from.
that's not me.
It's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
And my recommendation is that we just accept it as a reviewed.
Okay.
Reviewed policy. All the new definitions are out there. And weapons. Michael?
I was spending a long time looking for the model policy on weapons, and Aaron just explained to me there is not one.
They,
Oh, they pulled it, okay. So, that being said,
Before you do you know why?
you want to explain it, Aaron, because you had the
Sorry.
conversation.
They did not have a reason why, only that it was pulled in 2022, and they're all staff since then, so
Okay.
they are aware of the decision.
Okay. I was just curious if something had happened or there was something missing and like what, I'm just curious.
they don't have any documentation as to why they did, it's only 3 years ago. I believe you.
That's really weird. You would think there'd be a reason.
Right? Well, there clearly was a reason. They just,
Absolutely.
they don't have documentation of
It's
what that was.
interesting, right?
So when I read this, and what was the other, was the policy close to this?
Is the firearms.
Firearms.
Yeah.
Right. So like when I look at this, look at lines between 13 and 17, I see that's a conflict, you know, right there, right? Any student who is in violation of this policy may be brought by the superintendent to the school board for an expulsion hearing. And then it says, if a student is in possession of a firearm on school grounds or statute, the superintendent is required to bring, so it just seems confusing.
Actually, so it isn't, it could be, yes, it could be confusing to people reading this the first time. To me, it's about what's a weapon versus what's a firearm.
Okay, thank you. I didn't even. That's why it's confusing, because it's not confusing. Okay, I'm with you.
So well, people get very confused. And
Well,
I've
because
had-
you read
I've
it too
had
quickly.
lots of conversations. So I use the example of a baseball bat can be a weapon,
Sure,
but it's not a firearm.
sure. Right, because we talk about violation of the policy versus, and that one specifically says firearm. Okay, thank you. So then if we're gonna have this, I would wanna really bold that because, I didn't catch it and I just.
So I think, and this discussion is exactly the discussion I wanted to have.
Okay.
Because I like having this policy, but I think there needs to be a clear definition of a weapon versus of what a firearm is.
Okay,
And maybe we can get something from the firearm. I don't think we're done with this here today.
Yep.
This group, but I think it's, because I can think about every time I've had to have a discussion about a firearm, people are like, well, you have a weapons policy that says you may, so why are you taking me to the board? And I'm like, so I need you to take you to the law that says if it's a firearm, I have to take you to the board.
mm-hmm,
It's that definition of like what's policy and what's law.
right,
But I also want to be able to say, if your intent with the, I'm going back to that baseball bat, is to hurt me.
Mhm.
And I can't get through with our discipline policy, and that was one of the things, I know, Aaron, you were trying to get when there was some confusion with VSBA, or maybe your discipline policy covers weapons. To me, if you're gonna come to intend to hurt somebody with something.
Yeah.
And consciously,
it could
then
be a pair of scissors, it could be a pencil, it could be.
a lot of different things turn into a weapon.
Right,
Exactly,
an object that is
right, so.
being used to.
I mean, I'll tell you, I've had some of those discussions, and it depends on the grade level.
Yeah, right, no doubt. I was
Use.
actually thinking of like a pencil in like the younger grades,
You got it,
but kids have definitely.
yeah. And how I want to respond to a first grader versus an eighth grader with intent are very different. You know, so But I think it's a good policy to keep. It may be that we need to do some rewriting for clarity
Defining, yeah.
and defining
I'm
things.
happy to work on that and the other people if they want to as well, but I'm happy to.
Yeah, I would actually, what I would ask is, if Joanne, if you wanna work on it, I wanna send it to our assistant principals. Because they gotta live with, they're the ones working with this. And say, what do you think?
I wonder what else is out there for examples of.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure that there are other school districts who have women's policies, although not the VSBA.
Well, maybe they took it because of this issue, right? That it couldn't be specific, so they just left it as broad.
Some people, they get into a definition, and I'm not suggesting we go here, but I'm gonna bring it up anyway.
Sure.
A night, and in my previous district, if it was over, I think, 3 inches, it came to the board. If it was under 3 inches, and we had environmental clubs that require that you have a wilderness night, those things are 6 inches long. The kids forget those are in their bag because they went to wilderness school. Yep. And I'm glad we don't have that, because when that has happened here, and we said like, parent, please come and pick this up, and please make sure Johnny or Susie don't have this in their bag. Right. When they come to school. I know you look each time, but.
Well, even, I mean, students at building trades or forestry, and then you've got to look at that. in
Yeah,
terms of,
or
like,
I
being
went to work and I've got a box cutter in my.
Yeah.
And we don't necessarily need an automatic board hearing.
Mhm.
Those things. There's a lot of.
So we will bring that back in June. Take,
That'd be
we'll want to
great.
look at fourth. Okay, okay.
Are we gonna look at anything next meeting, because I do have to bring that up.
Yep.
Quick myself.
Sorry, we're reading that.
We have 3 right now for June, if I'm doing my count right. Maybe 4 if we get the behavior, but, I think I wrote notes for weapons, conflict of interest, the student clubs, and the behavior threat assessment. So I don't know how many of the new ones that.
Weapons, conflict of interest, student clubs.
And I wrote the behavior threat depending on where the legislature.
Okay.
And you wrote what?
Behavior threat. as
Yeah.
well. Behavior threat, student clubs, board member conflict, and weapons.
And do you want to see if there is a tobacco for the workplace, or just leave it at
We could do that.
the,
We could
at
do
the
some research on
prohibition?
that.
Let's,
Do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, tobacco for workplace, yeah. For school system, yeah. I'd rather be as clear as possible. I was like, hey.
Yeah.
No tobacco on school grounds.
Right, right. And I wonder, like, you know, in the beginning of the school year, when you go through like all the trainings
Yeah,
that
I know it's in
people-
our handbook. I've seen it. That doesn't mean it's.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get at. There's a
I'm
lot of
with you.
things.
Yep.
Can't guarantee you it's comprehensive.
okay, so do we want to add some more?
Yeah, I don't have the file with me.
I do.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, so it looks like we started, so I can't remember what the yellow was.
The yellows are, Aaron, do you remember what the yellows were?
Required.
Yellows will be required to have.
They're required.
VSBA.
Yeah, so we had gotten through the personnel and the students one section and instruction. And then the only required one that we haven't gotten to, I think, is the general and travel reimbursement under non-instructional operations, as far as I can tell.
And that'd be good to have Bree and Becky look at it too, because it hits both their departments, the HR and the business. I know that every January we send out, hey, here's a new IRS rate. Everybody. That's when the IRS updates it.
What number is that policy?
That one is F01. It looks like in my, I don't know if anyone's
sees any that we're missing, that looks like the last one of the required.
And we might leave time, Marion, then to talk about what's our strategy, because after that, that's our first strategy, besides what we saw.
I see several required that aren't highlighted.
Right, because maybe there were conflicts with dates.
Okay.
Right, those are the ones we're making around as a policy after.
After that, thank you.
Next year.
So you said to, would we have, how do we have, HR look at it too?
I was just, Aaron and I, we write notes, we actually sit down after this meeting, and it goes, okay, what were the tasks that we discussed, that's how we assigned for ourselves to make sure they get done?
That's fair.
Usually it's him a lot harder than it's anyone else, but, that's how we did it, so we would say, hey, let's make sure Becky and Bree look over F01 and if they have any suggestions.
Okay.
Yeah, just like Bree did today, she said, hey, this one's gotta get changed before we get to July 1. We were up to a new fiscal year.
Okay.
But then I would suggest that if we just did that, did the 4 that we identified, and then had a discussion about, okay, we assigned ourselves, hey, let's do the ones that we had looked at that had updates that were after the required policy adoption. And we had, let's talk about what we want to tackle next. And then we figure that out, and then I'm gonna suggest that we don't meet in July. And then we could pick it back up in August with work.
So we're,
So it's a good approach.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
all right.
Meeting adjourned at 4:26.